clothing brand Abercrombie and Fitch (ANF) says it is investigating allegations against its former CEO. Mr Jeffries has been accused of exploiting men at sex events he hosted around the world. A BBC investigation found an organized network used a middleman to recruit young adult men for the events with Mr Jeffries and his partner Mr Smith, with some alleging they were abused. Mr Jeffries and Mr Smith did not respond to requests for comment. ANF, which runs about 850 stores worldwide, including its Hollister brand, said that since being contacted by the BBC it had engaged an outside law firm to conduct an independent investigation into the claims. It said it was appalled and disgusted by the alleged behavior. It has previously described Mr Jeffries as the modern-day founder of the company after he transformed the brand from a failing heritage outfitter in the 1990s to a multi-billion-dollar teen retailer. He stepped down in 2014 following declining sales and left with a retirement package valued at around $25 million, £20.5 million, according to company filings at the time. A&F said it was not aware of the allegations of sexual misconduct and that its new leadership had transformed the company into the values-driven organization we are today. In a 2-year investigation published on Monday, the BBC uncovered allegations that Mr Jeffries exploited men for sex at events he hosted in his New York residences and luxurious hotels around the world, including in London, Paris, Venice, and Marrakesh. 12 men described attending or organizing events involving sex acts run for the fashion mogul, 79, and his British partner Mr Smith, 60, between 2009 and 2015. The 8 men who attended the events said they were recruited by a middleman who they described as having a missing nose covered with a snakeskin patch. The BBC has identified him as James Jacobson. Half the men who told the BBC about their recruitment alleged they had been initially misled about the nature of the events or not told sex was involved. Others said they understood the events would be sexual but not exactly what was expected of them. All were paid. Mr Jacobson denied any wrongdoing and said men went into the events with their eyes wide open. Men who attended these events told the BBC Mr Jeffries and Mr Smith would engage in sexual activity with about 4 men or direct them to have sex with each other. Afterwards, the men said staff at the event handed them envelopes filled with thousands of dollars in cash. David Bradbury, then 23, said he was introduced in 2010 to Mr Jacobson by an agent who described him as the gatekeeper to the owners of ANF but said there was no mention of sex. At their meeting, he said Mr Jacobson suggested Bruce Weber, then A&F's official photographer, should take his picture. Then Mr Bradbury said, "Jim made it clear to me that unless I let him perform oral sex on me that I would not be meeting with Abercrombie and Fitch or Mr Jeffries." He said he felt as though he was paralyzed. Looking back, he said this incident should have been a red flag, but he thought Mr Jacobson was just a creepy old dude that I wouldn't have to see again. Mr Bradbury later accepted an invitation to a daytime event at Mr Jeffries' former home in the Hamptons on New York's Long Island, recently sold for $29 million. While there, he said he spoke to Mr Jeffries and Mr Smith about his aspirations to be an ANF model. Then, he said, Mr Jeffries held poppers under his nose, a drug which can cause a strong head rush and disorientation, and later had sex with him, another man. Barrett Paul said he felt pressured into attending an event in the Hamptons in 2011. Then 22, he said he was recruited by an older model who received a referral fee to be his replacement for some sort of sexual experience with the couple. He said he agreed because the older model had financially supported him and he felt indebted to him. Mr. Paul said the older model told him you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but suggested that the further you go, the better, and alluded to career opportunities. When he arrived at the event, he said he felt under pressure to perform. At one point, Mr. Paul said Mr. Jeffries was behind him, groping him. "This experience, I think it broke me," he said. "I think that this stole any ounce of innocence that I had left. It mentally messed me up. But with the language I now have today, I can sit here and tell you that I was taken advantage of." The largest event described to the BBC was hosted in a private villa at a 5-star hotel in 2011, for which dozens of men were flown to Marrakesh. The BBC understands Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Smith had also invited friends. Alex, who asked for his name to be changed to protect his identity, said he was a struggling model supporting his family back home when he was recruited as a dancer for the event where he expected he would have to strip.